remixer.
Kalandanya Music Promotions.
Achika dichi. Young WD.
Yeah. Oh no. Bakabila bakangise. Atinga we kabone yena bakanseke. Mwipe bodia bodionse bafaya nkalumbe. Blessings follow me. Bakabila bakangise. Atinga we kabone yena bakanseke. Mwipe bodia bodionse bafaya nkalumbe bena. Blessings follow me. Alale satalala, talala, katula le satalala, talala, alandwile kondo talala, talala, Jehovah wandi talala. Alale satalala, talala, katula le satalala, talala, alandwile kondo talala. Kalala, blessings follow me. Bonfa winonga ndechula, umutima nga ulechula. Bonfa winonga ndekula, imitima shabo shachula. Bafaya fenebo nachula, nombale salankula. No, 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 no.
Hey, chidinde beula kwa tinitipa. Despite abanwani kuntipa. Nachopena the team kusasita. Show me some support, it's way cheaper. Emi ponto parento advisory. Kantemo patalenda ngaivori.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking a few moments out of your very busy schedule here on a Thursday morning. Unbelievable that it's Thursday. Honestly, the other day, it was yesterday, I turned to my wife and I said, is it Wednesday already? Seems to me the older I get, the quicker the days go by. Do you find this? Is this what you're experiencing? When I get to my age, a week feels like 2 days. When I was a teenager, a week was an eternity. I mean, honestly, really, it took forever to get from Monday to Friday. It was like the Inquisition. Goodness. Okay, guys, just a few shout outs to you before I begin our little show today. Incidentally, I've just this morning I found out that I got released from Facebook jail. I've been in Facebook jail for the past 5 or 6 days. I blundered. I admit it. I blundered. I dropped the ball. I faux pod. You know that word, faux pod? I thought I was trying to be cute, but in reality, I was shooting myself in the foot. So the other day, I get to the office. Real quick, I have to tell you the story because I know this serves as a cautionary tale to some of you. And, remember Maya Angelou always said, when you learn something, teach it. Teach it. So I'm teaching it to you. So I get to the office and Floyd Mayweather, he's on the television screen. I've got a little lobby place, not a lobby, a little sitting area here in our office. And I'm live. And I pointed my camera towards the television set. And there was Floyd Mayweather fighting Logan Paul. And incidentally, I thought that fight was a whole sham. I'll be honest with you. That's another topic for another day. Anyway, my camera is pointing towards the television set. And guess what? Boom. Mark Zuckerberg turned around, boy, and he pressed that button. He said, Mwewa, I'm sending you to Facebook jail, and I'm going to look the other way. So what's the lesson? The lesson is don't, when you're live or when you're doing any type of recording, Facebook takes it very personal when you start showing copywritten stuff or license issues. They don't like that. Honey, they've got an algorithm that will mess you up. You think they're not watching, but Mark Zuckerberg and his homeboys, they're on it. Soon as you violate, boy, they show up at your doorstep, digitally speaking. They say, Mwewa, you are contravening. We are going to cast you in a dungeon of forgetfulness. And if you repeat, Mwewa, we shall remove you permanently. Are we together? So you just have to succumb. You have to sort of acquiesce and yield yourself to the process. Stick within the guidelines, you'll be fine. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm glad I'm back here on Facebook. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Thank you, Mark, for releasing me from Facebook. All right, let's get into it, shall we? All right, a few shout outs to some of you. But before I do that, I need to do one of these. Just give me a moment. I need to. So let me tell you what I do. I take my stack of CDs. Do they still have CDs now? Do they still do these? Because I get the sense that they don't do this anymore. That this is not something they do. Anyway, what I do is I take my stack of CDs and then I lift up my laptop and I place it underneath there so that I don't have to look too far down to read your comments. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Phil Zone. Welcome back. Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much. Bless you. Bless you for that. You lovely, precious people. Oh, Evans Mpunda Jr. says, we missed you, Uncle Simon Moyle television. Really? You missed me? Oh, come on. Don't make me grow wings now, because I'll do it. All right. All right. Oh, here we go. Here's Shy Natasha John Morris. She's one of our very faithful SML TV viewers. And every once in a while, you see somebody on there that you like, or that's constantly on there. And Shy Natasha John Morris is one of them. Thank you, Shy. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. All right, let's get into it. Guys, here's the question. Are Zambian police officers corrupt? Now, before we get into it, let's define what corruption is. Corruption is an exchange of favors for monetary gain. When you give someone money to do something nefarious or underhanded or illegal, that is called corruption. So the question then is, are Zambian police officers corrupt? Well, the answer is yes. But it doesn't stop there. It's not a full stop after that answer. When you say Zambian police officers are corrupt, you don't put a full stop at the end of that sentence. It's a comma. What you're supposed to say is Zambian police officers are corrupt just like every other police department in every country on this planet. There are corrupt elements in every organization. The only difference is, does the organization have a system to deal with corruption? If you have an organization that is corrupt and you don't have an internal system that deals with that corruption, you're going up a creek without a paddle. You're barking up the wrong tree. You're sort of shooting in the dark. You don't know what you're doing. You're hanging by a thread. Internal systems are important for you to deal with corruption. If you don't do it, eventually you get overtaken by events and your organization becomes ineffective Number one. Number two, there is no public confidence in your organization. This is what happens. But when your organization has internal systems that deal with that, and your organization is seen to be dealing with the corruption, it builds public confidence. But if you ignore it, eventually it'll get you. Remember, guys, do you remember this? Tell me if you remember this. Have you ever seen this movie, Internal Affairs? Starred Richard Gere, the great Richard Gere. He's a famous American actor. He played the character of Dennis Peck. Remember this? This was a film back in 1990 set in Los Angeles. And it was basically about a police officer that appeared to be a model, not only a model citizen, but a model police officer. But underneath him, underneath his character, underneath his sinister veneer, was a police officer that was the quintessential epitome of corruption. I mean, he was bad news. He was nefarious. He was a clever manipulator of the system. He used his friends within the police department to sort of do his thing. And eventually it all came to a head, because here's the thing about corruption, is that it doesn't really have strong legs. Eventually, ultimately, it always unravels. Especially now, we're living now in an age where cameras are with everyone at any time. I am 51 years old, 52. But I can remember a time when we didn't have cameras everywhere. I mean, if you saw something on video, in those days, we used to call it videotaping. When you asked someone to record something, you in those days, you said, tape it. In today's lingo, if you say to a young person, tape it, they won't know what you're talking about. They'll think you're asking them to take a sellotape and then taping it. No. In our days, taping meant recording. And in those days, not everybody could tape stuff. But now, every Jim and Jack, every Chibamba and the Hamanyanga, every Hamsankwa and the Kaluba, every Nyambe and the Mwangala has a phone. And the phone has a camera. And so every once in a while, we get to see things that we wouldn't normally see. What am I trying to get to? I'm trying to get to this. In the last 48 hours, we've seen a videotape of a Chinese national. Guys, let me take this opportunity to teach you something. When you're referring to the Chinese or to the Chinese nationals, please don't say Chinaman. Chinaman is a derogatory term. You may not know this, but it is. You cannot use the word Chinaman on an international platform. You'll be flagged down for that. Okay? So when you're referring to the Chinese, refer to them as Chinese nationals or the Chinese people. Never say Chinaman. It's the equivalent of calling a black man nigger. You don't like it when people call you nigger, do you? It's not right. Okay. So just that's just a side note. So there's a videotape going around, and I must tell you, this videotape is damaging. And here's my admonition to the Zambia police. And I know people in the Zambia police. I don't know all of them, but I do know quite a number of them. Many of them are my friends, as they are yours, you know, because I know somebody on here is going, well, you think you're the only one who knows the police? We also know. I know. I'm just telling you. The Zambia Police Department should not ignore this videotape. This is damaging. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it. Basically, there's a Chinese national okay, or a Chinese man, okay, Chinese citizen, standing surrounded with police officers in full uniform with weapons, armed police officers. And they seem to be having a casual, cordial conversation. The conversation is not confrontational. The Chinese man or the Chinese national is not in trouble in the video. They seem to be making some type of an arrangement or an agreement. And at some point, the Chinese national says to one of the officers, can I have your number? So this officer Muyunda from Chawama Police, and the only reason I'm saying his name is because this is in the public domain. I'm not revealing anything that is concealed or that is secret or that is under surveillance or is clandestine. I'm just telling you what it is, and this is in the public domain. And so the Chinese man, or the Chinese national, proceeds to get the phone number from Mr. Muyunda, who's an officer, and he gives his number. Now, everybody knows his number now. I mean, Officer Muyunda's number right now is the most famous number in Zambia because he gives it in full view. And then at one point, the police officer takes out a wad of cash. You know, a wad of cash? Not to ward, wad, W-A-D, like a bunch of cash. And he hands it to one of the police officers, who then takes it. And then, at some point during the conversation, Officer Muyunda says to the Chinese national, if you ever need me, call me. If you ever need an escort, call me. If at any point you need my assistance, call me. And you know, the Chinese national, he sort of affirms that. And then at some stage in the video, the police officers, which numbered about 5 or 6 of them, they walk off. They walk out of what appeared to be a yard. And from the video, it seems to me that the police officers went to this Chinese national's either his residence or his place of business or something like that. And at some stage, the police officers left. Now, the whole video is incriminating. When you have a police officer in uniform conducting themselves in that fashion, huge red flags, big problem. And I would hope, and I say this as a citizen of this beautiful country, I would hope that the police department does something about this and issues a statement on it because it's in the public domain. It would be a grave mistake for the police, the Zambia police, not to address this. If they keep quiet about it, if they act blasé, if they act aloof, indifferent, and sort of sweep it under the rug, that's a bad thing. That's not good. That's going to erode the public's confidence. Now, I'm going to make a very controversial statement, but I really believe this. And this statement is garnered, you know, the word garnered is gathered from my 51 years of living. It's actually 52, but we're not talking about that. And it's this. I can handle a corrupt politician. Not to excuse that, not to justify it, not to say that it's okay, but I'm trying to draw a comparison here. I can handle a corrupt politician, but I can never handle a corrupt police officer. You know why? Because the police officer is held to a higher standard. The police officer is the custodian of peace, law, and order. Those three elements, those three traits, those three attributes are embodied in one person. The trilogy of justice is embedded within the police officer. I need that to sink in for a moment so that you get what I'm saying. Understand the pathos of my heart when I tell you that the trilogy of justice resides within the police officer. And if the police officer is corrupt, we're in big trouble. The police officer is the custodian of peace, law, and order. Now, imagine for a moment if you give these instruments to a man or a woman that is corrupt, they can do a variety of damage. You don't ever want to cross a corrupt police officer, because a corrupt police officer can make your life miserable. Miserable. Who do you run to when you're in trouble? Now, for those of you that are my Christian brothers and sisters, I'm not talking about, this is not a spiritual question, because I know some of you, you're so spiritually minded, you know earthly good. With that question, someone on the comments is going to burst out with, well, you can't depend on the man, it's only God. Well, I'm not asking a spiritual question. I'm asking a practical question. When you are in trouble, who do you call? We know, if you're Christian, you subscribe to the word of God, you're a Christian. Of course, we know. That goes without saying. When you're in trouble, call upon the name of the Lord. I know that, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, aside from that, when you're in trouble, who do you call? You call the police. That is your first line of defense, humanly speaking. I have to qualify that for my Christian, my fellow Pentecostals out there. On the human front, the police officer is your first line of defense. Now, if your first line of defense is corrupt, what do you think that does? There is nothing worse than a corrupt police officer. A corrupt police officer can cause some serious damage. Serious damage. So, here's my admonition to Zambia police. This officer in Chawama, Officer Muyunda, deal with him. Put a line through his name instead of under it. Shall we? Zambia police, circle the wagons on this issue. Do not ignore it. Do not tiptoe through the tulips. Do not play patty cake, baker man. Deal with it. You've got a rogue police officer in your midst, and you need to get rid of him. Because if you don't, the Zambian public will keep talking about it. Boom. All right. That's what I wanted to share with you. I've been speaking for 23 minutes. 23 minutes? Goodness. All right, let me read some of your comments here. Oh, trust a Zambian. Listen to this comment. Listen to this comment. Watch this. They just, and you can only read this in a pure Zambian accent. They just have to be corrupt. Who's going to be corrupt if not them? Them. In Zambia, we say dem. In English, they say damn. Damn's a bad word, you know. When I was growing up as a young Christian, you couldn't say damn. It was like a cuss word. All right. James Muene says, not all are corrupt, but the traffic department, they are corrupt, especially here in Ndola. They even come in companies following a bribe. It's sad. It happens. It happens everywhere in the world. It does. Remember this movie here? Remember this one? Training Day with Denzel Washington. You know, he played the corrupt police officer, Alfonso. This movie was based on a true story. I mean, these guys, imagine this guy, Alfonso, played by Denzel Washington. He worked in the narcotics department. So all the drug busts, he used to lead the drug busts. So you break into a house and a bunch of drug dealers, and you break into a middle of a transaction. There's $500,000 sitting there in cash. And these cops shoot everyone in the room. The only thing left in the room are police officers, dead bodies, and cold, hard cash. This guy, Alfonso, played by Denzel Washington, figured, you know what? Let's take the money. We're just going to take this money. Forget the police department. Even if we submit it, it's going to end up in huge banks and this. So in his mind, he figured, you know what? Forget that, man. I'm taking this money. Corruption. Now, what happened at the end of the movie? If you haven't seen Training Day, you should watch that. It gives you a glimpse into the life of a corrupt police officer. And there's nothing worse than a corrupt police officer. Nothing worse than a corrupt police officer. Yeah. You should watch that. True story. Okay. Yes, this is Commander Muyunda's number. Now, I'm not telling you anything that the public doesn't already know. Everybody knows this. Okay. It's in the public domain. Oh, this is sad. Ian says, Awe, you can't even go to report a case if you don't have umuzulu. Chapa. Well, I disagree with that. I don't think everybody's corrupt. I think there are elements of corruption. Elements. I wouldn't say the entire Zambian police department is corrupt. This is Bwana Njombe. Is this him? Bwana Njombe says, I have to do a forensic investigation on your topic. That's terrible. I imagine that's him. That's a dear friend of mine. Bless him. We love him. We love him. And let me just say also here that he's created a character that made the police department lovable and enjoyable. So kudos to you for that, brother. Yeah, let's go with this. James Shane says, Mr. Moya, ask the madam spokesperson of the police so that we hear their side of the story. But I'm sure she can only say we don't know anything or we are still investigating the matter. That will be the end of the story. Well, you know, the police are very thorough. They're not like social media. The police are not, well, at least they're not supposed to be. The police are not reactionary like us. We see a story. I mean, I watched the video. I didn't watch a clip of it. I watched the whole thing. There are clips of it, and then there's like a full-length video. And what I deduce, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I get the sense that a fellow Chinese national recorded that whole thing, unbeknownst to the police officers. The police officers, I don't think, were aware that they were being recorded. Of course, if they did know, they wouldn't have been forthcoming. You know, they wouldn't have been that open. I don't think, it appears to me that the officers in the video were completely unaware that they were being surveillanced, they were being surveyed, and they were being recorded. They didn't know that there was some type of surveillance being carried out on them. They were unaware of that, you know. So, and I get the sense that another Chinese national did that he recorded them. It could have been a trap. We don't know. But what is very clear, what is very, very clear is that that transaction was nefarious. It was illegal. It was corrupt. No two ways. There's no way anybody can explain that. It is absolutely illegal for a police officer in uniform to receive cash money for anything in any type of transaction, number one. Number two, Officer Muyunda is offering offering state resources to help a Chinese national. I mean, basically, he's in the video saying if you need an escort, he was saying that in his capacity as a police officer. He wasn't saying that in his capacity as a private citizen. He was basically saying to the Chinese guy, if you need an escort, a police escort, that is a government seal. Those are government resources. So how the hell does a police officer use government resources to aid, abet, and assist a Chinese national? You go to Beijing right now. You go to Dalian right now. You go to Guangzhou right now as a Zambian and see if you can carry out any type of cash transaction with a uniformed Chinese officer. Can never happen. Never. That can never happen. So why the hell is it happening here? Zambia police. Bakanganja. Please don't ignore this. Deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it, sir. It's a problem. Those officers in the video, put a line through their names instead of under it or under them. Get rid of them. They're bad seed. Here's a question. This is Mwiko. Says, do you think a Chinese police officer can do that for you in China? Are you kidding me? In China, bari tudelera bari shibatu mwina Zambia ari shipula ta. Dari shipula. Bari twingira bari tudelera. Ine naima na yaku Guangzhou. Na yaku Dalian. Na yaku Beijing. And I try to do a cash transaction with a Chinese uniformed officer? Never in a million years would it happen in China. Never. Not once. But in Zambia, bwana ni olo. Ni free for all. Vina vemene wimverela chitafiole fwaya. That's bad. That's not good. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. God bless. Bye.